When it comes to my channel, I make a very heavy use of RSS feeds. I find them to be a very convenient way to keep track of, Reddit and news sites. Basically, keep track of topics that I might want to do videos on without having to worry about them being deleted or modified, and then get to them basically at my leisure. Now, some might say too many topics, some of those people might be me, but it certainly gives me a lot of stuff to actually work through. But sometimes there's going to be certain topics that I just don't want to read or don't really have any relevance to what I actually want to talk about. Maybe it's by a certain author, or it's a specific, maybe I don't want to talk about, I don't know, macOS or something. Well, obviously, I could just leave it there and not deal with it, but there's actually a much better solution. So my RSS feed reader of choice is Newsboat. Honestly, it's an amazing application, but this video isn't just me simping over the software. So what we're going to be talking about today is its kill file functionality with ignore article and ignore mode. Now, most RSS feed readers do have some sort of kill file functionality, so even if you're not using Newsboat, you can probably do something similar with your choice. First up, let's talk about the filtering mode controlled by ignore mode. So there are 2 points where an article can actually be filtered. That is during the point when it is being downloaded, and then just before it is being displayed. Now, currently I've got ignore mode set to display, but that is mainly for the sake of testing. If you wanted to run this in the long run, I recommend setting this to download instead. So if we set this to download, it won't download the article at all, and obviously if it's not downloaded, then it cannot be shown. If this is just set to display, it will download the article, but then when you actually open up the feed, it won't actually show it. This is just to save a little bit of hard drive space and save time when you're actually, downloading the articles. There's no point downloading them if you're never actually going to see them. So that's everything for the ignore mode. The main meat of kill files is controlled by ignore article. Now, you probably got a brief look at that just before, and it looks a little something like this. Now, this syntax might look a little bit weird, but by the end of this video, it should probably makes sense. So I've only got one ignore article in here, but we can actually use as many as we want. Make sure there is a dash between the two words. This is incredibly important. Now, as for this second part, this controls which of the feeds we're actually operating on. And if you've ever done anything with file globbing or regexes, you should know exactly what an asterisk means. This means affect everything, but we don't just have to run it on everything. This is why we can have multiple ignore articles. So if you wanted to just run it on, say, I don't know, your feed for, Linux Reddit or something, you'd include the URL to that feed. Now, this second part is where we're controlling what is actually being filtered. And if you watch my video from 6, 7, I don't know how many months ago, when I did a video on Newsboat query feeds, this syntax might look very familiar. And the reason it looks familiar is because it is actually the exact same syntax. So Newsboat doesn't go and make different syntaxes for the different things it's using. It just uses the same syntax and just uses it for different things. This does make it very easy to work with Newsboat and just learn one of the filtering syntaxes. When it comes to the Newsboat filter syntax, the best way to put it, I guess, would be very jank. So what this is basically saying, if title matches the regex containing this right here, or title matches the regex containing this right here. Now, do keep in mind, this is the logical OR, not the English OR, so that would be if both of these do match, that would still be true, or if one of them do. If that is the case, then go and ignore that article. So let's go and get rid of all of this and then make an example completely from scratch. So let's go and see what is in Newsboat so I know, something actually there that we can ignore. So let's go and ignore anything that says BSPWM, and let's also go and get rid of anything referencing Ubuntu as well. If you've done any programming before, these are all fairly basic operators, and a lot of them you've probably already seen. Now, do keep in mind that when we are testing for equality or inequality, it is only going to come up as true if we are directly matching. So if it is something like title equals Ubuntu, that will only match if the entire title just says Ubuntu. That is why I was using the regexes before, to make sure that we could basically say if this contains it, then match it on that. Now, as for the attributes you can match on, those would be these in here. Now, do keep in mind that not every single one of the attributes is going to be in every single article and every single feed. Some of them are always going to be there. Things like title, usually content unless it's a podcast feed, things like the date, the index in Newsboat itself, things like that are going to be there, but others like the enclosure URL or the flags, those might be missing, and this entirely depends on the data that you're actually working with. Also, do keep in mind that all of the data in here can be treated as a string, but some of them will actually be integers, so things like the counts or the indexes can be compared against each other by checking like which one is greater than the other. While recording this video, I actually realized there was a better way to write my example than the way that I'd done so earlier, and that is by using the contains operator rather than the regex operator, because all we're doing is saying if this word is contained within the title. Now, the contains operator does say that you should be able to use a space-separated list of words. I tried that in as many forms I could think of, and every single one of them gave me a syntax error, so instead of doing that, we're going to do it the same way I did before, but with the contains operator instead. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. So that'll be title hash Ubuntu or title hash BSPWM. Now, you might think this is actually going to work. If we go and run a Newsboat, that's actually going to error out. So the way that Newsboat's syntax works is a little bit jank. So we have to go and surround every single string that isn't an attribute with quote marks, but not just with quote marks. This by itself isn't actually going to work and is going to actually give us another syntax error. What we actually need to do is make sure we actually go and escape these quotes. The reason why it's like this is because the syntax is very jank and doesn't let us use apostrophes, and we have to use quote marks instead. But when you have quote marks in a quote mark, it's very unclear where to actually end them. So basically, this gibberish has to happen. So let's go and save this and then run Newsboat again. And once that's loaded up all my feeds, BSPWM and Ubuntu should be missing, assuming I did spell them correctly, which looks to be the case. If we go into this one, as we can see, those ones we had before are now completely missing. Just to confirm that being the case, let's actually go and swap this around, and instead of saying get rid of anything that matches on Ubuntu and matches on BSPWM, let's say only keep things that are using Ubuntu and using BSPWM. So going and save this and then restarting Newsboat, you have to restart it every single time you go and modify the config file, and you can probably already tell there is a massive difference here. Now we only have these two articles. Maybe a better way to phrase that is get rid of anything that does not contain these words. Now let's try something a little different. Let's get rid of any articles that are, let's say, older than 30 days old. So if we scroll down a bit, we'll notice there is an attribute in here titled age. This is age in a number of days. This is exactly what we need. So let's go and use age. Now, because we're not operating on a string, we don't need to include the quote marks this time. Now we can just include the number. So 30. And then anything older than 30, let's ignore that. Let's go and save this and then restart Newsboat. And we'll see the amount of articles we have is way, way smaller than we started with. And it's still showing the latest articles. So let's go and swap that around. Let's say we want to get rid of anything younger than 30 days old. Let's say we just don't want to see any recent news. That should go and do the opposite. And now we won't see anything until, I guess, last month, or as whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. As we can see, now we're just seeing September. Now, like any good programming language or filter syntax, we also can use brackets. So let's go and say this is in brackets here, and then, or, I don't know, the age is greater than 100. Now, obviously, with this example, we don't exactly need the brackets, but we could go and add extra things in the brackets as well. So let's say we have a another operator in here, like or, title, and then, like before, we have to go and use the backslashes. Title contains BSPWM. So in this case, it's going to match on this logically or this logically or both at the same time. However, most of the filtering you're going to want to do though is going to be fairly basic stuff like filtering based on the author or filtering based on the title. It's just that if you want to go and do some of this more advanced filtering, it absolutely is here available for you if you want to use it. Now, on the off chance this isn't going to be powerful enough for you, Newsboat does also give you access to a function known as filter scripts. Unlike doing the filter syntax built into Newsboat, this lets you run a script written in like Python or Bash or Perl or whatever language you want to use, and then filter based on the XML itself. So maybe there's some attributes not being detected by Newsboat you want to filter on or something like that. That is one way you can go and do that. That is way outside of the scope of this video. I wanted to mention that it does exist though, just in case you want to use it. Most things you want to do though are going to be handled by what we covered today though. Now Robertson, I hope you're happy. You've been asking me to do this video for God knows how long, way too long. Finally made it. Even though you stopped using filter scripts, and that was the original reason why you wanted me to make this video, but I got to it at some point. So if you learned something new about Newsboat today, please let me know in the comment section down below. Do you use Newsboat as your RSS feed reader, or did you just suddenly hear about it and you want to learn more about it? I don't know. Let me know down below. So that's going to be it for me, and if you like this video and you want to support the channel and become one of these amazing people over here, please go check out my Patreon subscribers on LiberaPay, linked in the description down below. I've got a podcast called Tech Over Tea available basically anywhere. I've got a gaming channel called Brodie Robertson Plays where I live stream twice a week, upload about 5 or so YouTube shorts, and this channel is also available over on Odyssey. That's going to be it for me, and I'm out.